All right, I am happy to be joined with William Cook. He's the interim CEO of MindLeap Health Technology. William, great to have you on. Let's learn a little bit about this, obviously, app today. But first off, how are things?
Great to be with you.
Well, you are based in California. We were talking about that off camera before we started recording. But first off, I guess with anything, how's the whole life been over the past 12 months? It seems like there's some opening up. And I guess we're going to learn a little bit about your background, but fascinating story to say the least. But most importantly, how are you doing?
Great. It's obviously been it's a challenge for every business, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But living online, as we all do,
Yeah.
everyone working remotely every day, every hour of the day, you spend 90% of your time glued to a computer.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
And that of course can create as many issues as it solves. So,
But the platform that you've
fun.
designed, MindLeap, for a lot of the investors that obviously know your story, but people that are new to this industry, is a subsidiary of Mydecine Innovations Group, which trades, on the New York Exchange under the ticker symbol MYCO. It is basically a technology platform that helps people obviously through their therapy sessions, through psychedelics. But before we get into details and questions I want to ask, maybe
Sure.
give a thorough background as to what the platform is and what it's going to achieve.
Well, MindLeap is a virtual health platform that provides the space for users to connect with professionals who can support them in psychedelic integration, as well as their inner wellness journeys more broadly.
Right.
The MindLeap infrastructure that we've been creating is designed to foster the conscious and trustworthy adoption of psychedelic treatment into mental health and inner wellness.
Right.
Okay. So the platform features a community of professionals, a private health journal, and a content library, which includes resources like meditations and psychoeducation materials from experts in mental health. MindLeap is a community-based platform that focuses on helping people who are not already advocates of psychedelics to understand the value of psychedelic treatment. And we'll be bridging the gap of commercial inner wellness applications and psychedelic treatment.
So when this launched to where we are today, what is some of the feedback and how much, interest is growing, knowing that this industry is evolving so quickly?
Well, yes, that's a good question. There is a lot of interest, of course. We have thousands of downloads every month.
Right.
We have a lot of interest, though. I mean, in what we're bringing to the table.
What are common things, I guess, that people are coming online and asking and learning about?
Well, in general, people are just interested in, what can psychedelics do for the inner wellness journey, right? And how are we going to do that? And there are, as you know, there are some that have been approved, for that purpose. There's ketamine out there. There's MDMA, which we believe is going to be, approved this year, and of course the psilocybin, which is a little longer leg, but a little longer journey ahead, but coming fast. And of course, it's being used in other locations throughout the world.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about MDMA, but I have heard that a lot, that we could see legalization from a medicinal standpoint within the next, 12 months, which is very promising.
Exactly.
This industry I always find very fascinating because as much as psychedelics has been around a long time, the industry as a whole, as far as business, is brand new, and the people that are attracted to it, interesting past to say the least. And when I think of you and what your past is and where you worked before, you designed the Patriot Missile System at Raytheon to hold a master's degree in marriage, family, and child therapy, performing countless hours in deep trauma, healing work, and psychotherapy settings. So my question is that what garnered interest, I guess, within this space, and how'd you get started, obviously, getting involved within the psychedelic industry?
Well, the folks at Mydecine and I and our family really have some other connections in the past. And but I think the thing that's also relevant, I guess I should say, in my story, my personal story, it really goes back as far as my days at West Point. I went to the military academy and was an Army officer.
Okay.
And from even back then at West Point, I've had an interest in helping people along their journey and a heart for hurting people when I ran the first cadet counseling center for new cadets in training at the academy. And then and then of course, my military service brought me into the tech world, right? You know,
Gotcha.
into development of the Patriot missile system, and later the THAAD ballistic missile system design that I led through the 90s. But so on the one side, I've got my technical career, right? And then my psychotherapy background was kind of on the side.
Right.
So bringing really my engineering background, which has been in building, high-end, intelligent, sophisticated systems for aerospace and commercial applications, into merge with healing work,
Right.
to and especially, another piece of that is a little piece of my story. Of course, my own military background, but my father was also a fought in World War II and Korean Wars. So I
Right.
have this heart for our soldiers and our veterans, and with what is about to happen, with actually bringing a solution to the millions, well, certainly hundreds of thousands, but potentially millions of veterans with PTSD is gigantic.
Yeah.
So, bringing these things
Do you believe that?
together, it gives me a lot of excitement anyway.
So do
So,
you believe that when it comes to PTSD, the research has been very, very promising, including obviously a recent study that Nature Medicine came out about 90 people in a clinical trial, as much as 87% saw a reduction, 67% were, cured, as they said. And it was a lot of people that were suffering from PTSD. But how much of a believer are you in this medicine that it will indeed make changes for a lot of these military veterans across the world?
well, I mean, obviously, because I have this, heart for hurting people, I have a great desire for it to work out,
Right.
and a great interest. I guess I'm because of my psychotherapy background. Of course, I have to be call it professionally skeptical until, in other words, as you see it
Right.
unfold, it's great. It's all been really positive so far. So I'm very, I guess the right way to say it is hopeful, because I have to say that as a therapist, but the fact that, in treating deep trauma,
Right.
one of the biggest problems is getting past this hesitant part to even talk.
Mm.
Okay, and I know from the research, and of course I'm tied in with our scientists and researchers, that it's getting past that hump and bringing people into the experience, if you will. I mean, in other words, to heal it so that they're not living on edge, all of their lives, or with that big hole in their soul. So
Wow.
that's where it holds a lot of promise for me.
Well, I've had a couple interviews with your chief medical officer, Dr. Rakesh Jetley, in the past. And
Yes,
one thing
Rakesh
I
is
was
great.
unaware of, and he taught me, was a lot of these military veterans that actually survive. And let's say, somebody, a
Mhm.
soldier that they work with, passes away, they deal with a lot of shame, which, I was completely unaware of. And I was speaking to somebody last week that was actually at a retreat about a year ago down in Costa Rica. And there was actually a US military soldier that was down there. And the breakthrough and the response that he had, it was like something they'd never heard before, because the amount of emotion that was built up.
Oh, for
And
sure.
it's so promising to hear that these are solutions that obviously they need. In some cases, some veterans have actually seen more of their friends die of suicide back at home than they were in battle, which is an eye-opening, obviously, stat, to say the least.
Right, both the shame and, I mean, there's a term used in trauma work called, referred to as survivor guilt, for, when the trauma has to do with someone's death.
Yeah.
The person, those of us left behind, have this connected guilt, attached to it. Anyway, it's great to see this changing, right?
Yeah,
Like
of
you're saying.
course.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the app itself, because in addition to soldiers, it's actually available for people with PTSD. And we can talk about, families that even have been affected by, grandfathers, fathers that have all fought in, world wars, and sometimes bring the war home to them. And the app itself has generated a reputation for being the industry's leading psychedelic wellness application. It has such features as an inner wellness media library, health journal, and community platform functions to provide users the support that they need to facilitate their psychiatric healing journey. So in a nutshell, in your own words, In addition to what you kind of outlined already,
Mhm.
how does this help the everyday person, and what can you expect as far as overall growth within this app, let's say over the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we've done is with our company, with our whole team and with our development, is we become a company that's focusing on the real problem, and that is how to bring psychedelics into the inner wellness journey for countless hurting souls in the world. And so that means that we have to design, and we have designed it to foster a conscious and trustworthy adoption of psychedelics into mental health and inner wellness. So, how do you do that? The future of virtual health is a place where they have to both
Right.
coexist, and anyone can feel safe picking up their phone or downloading the app that puts them on their journey toward healing. You know, we can't be one without the other.
Right.
In other words, if we were to just focus on psychedelic treatment, we actually would be missing the other 80% of the world that's hurting and doesn't
Hmm.
even know they need it yet, right?
Right.
So so we've designed this now so that it reaches out to the whole population, and that way people can come in from wherever they are, whether they're hurting from a relationship, whether they've just lost their job, where, you know, whatever, and or if they're doing great and they want to have some growth. You know, I mean, people come into it's kind of looking at from a therapeutic point of view, how do people come to therapy, right? Why
Hmm.
do people come to therapy? You know, they
Hmm.
come in therapy, they refer to it as the presenting problem, and sometimes it's just, you know, it's almost never I just want to feel better, or it's there's usually issues, right? And
Right.
so that's why what we've done is we've created a platform in which you can get help today, whether you get, we've mentioned the psychedelic integration sessions and inner wellness sessions with therapists, as we call them, specialists. And however, you can start listening to content, and you can think of it as, you know, meditations, psychoeducation, and other self-help type information that helps you work on yourself today.
Right.
And you can journal, you know, mark and count your own journey, and we're going to be also expanding a lot of that as we go forward. But this is a platform that basically can help everybody.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when you talked about Mydecine in the past, you know, you formed a union now, you're now part of a Mydecine company. Talk maybe a little bit more about as to how both companies have grown and how they obviously complement each other moving forward, given the research that they're doing as well.
Right. Well, our aggressive goals are to expand the capabilities of MindLeap for both clinics and users. Okay. And that's really going to elevate what we're doing at Mydecine to accomplish great things. As you know, as we've already mentioned, you know, our plans are to support both the veterans for PTSD
Yep.
as well as other clinical trials. See, that's a part of where we're going with our system, is additional features and so on that will help Mydecine conduct its clinical trials, so they'll be tied in with we call it the patient population. Some of those would actually be people who do in clinical trials would actually use MindLeap as a
Hmm.
part of their work in the clinical participation in the clinical trials.
Makes sense. Do you
Yeah.
think, I don't know if this is the question to ask you, but are there conversations happening with maybe bigger profile names that are interested in the space to become the eventual spokesperson for the actual app itself? Have the conversations like that been, you sit there with a smile, and I take it has, but you can't reveal who it is.
Sure, sure. I mean, obviously, until people, you know, get involved, you can't mention names. But
Of course.
yes, yes, there are a lot of people that have, or high profile folks that have a lot of interest in both Mydecine and MindLeap, for that
That's
matter.
great.
Yeah.
Well, I've a lot of people I've spoken to. It's really incredible. I have found in the last couple of months, especially, uh, on the cusp of like mass awareness with this industry, the way
Mhm.
it is just growing exponentially. And obviously, it's the test of time, so to speak, over the past 12 months as to what we've endured. But it's really brought to the forefront what people are going through right now. And I'm sure you know this better than anyone. People need more alternatives and solutions, do they not?
That's for sure. I mean, as you know, I mean, COVID has shut the population down and disconnected everybody.
Hmm.
And just having an ability to connect, and especially to connect in ways that will help you. I mean, the expansion and what we're doing, even in MindLeap, uh, with our system, is going to connect people even more.
It's great.
First of all, to resources that can help them in their journey right now, whether it's to help you get to sleep, or help you to encourage you for the day, or to connect with a specialist and to walk through, your difficulties and so on. Or there are other things coming, I guess some of which I probably shouldn't say,
Makes
but
sense.
we'll share later.
Well,
The other growth areas of groups and just other things,
it's
and
great.
as well, and I didn't mention it. We have some growth we're planning in the clinics arena to dial in clinics into MindLeap. So more coming in that area.
Well, you've talked about upcoming stuff. You're about to unveil your much anticipated 2.0 version of the app,
Right.
which will include enhanced features throughout the platform to optimize the experience for its users. So can you give us kind of an idea or a sneak preview as to what users can expect with the new version?
Well, as I mentioned before, the goal is to provide a unique wellness journey that invites people into the application to enjoy our curated wellness media library with psychedelic content by mastery level experts and interviews, as well as evolved private health journal and a community page for users to engage with coaches and specialists, so
Okay.
that we can fulfill their needs for inner wellness and psychedelic integration. So really, this is kind of an unveiling of both the upgraded and even reskinned. I mean, the look of it is so much more beautiful. It's
Hmm.
it's very comforting. As I say to my team, I often say to them, when people come to MindLeap, we want them to have the message "Welcome home."
That's great.
Okay, and you think about that with,
It's
whether
comforting, right?
veterans or any hurting soul, welcome home. We're glad you're here, and we're here
That's
to help you.
powerful,
So yeah,
especially when somebody doesn't feel like they're no longer alone, right? If somebody else is going through something and all of a sudden there's a support system, there's no greater medicine than human connection, is there not?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Finally, I wanted to ask you, last thing was stated in previous press releases, Mydecine has filed provisional patents to help protect the intellectual property of the app MindLeap. Are there proprietary features or algorithms within the app that you feel are, I'm sure, best in class from your competitors that are worth protecting?
Well, there's always things we're doing that are
Yeah.
worth protecting, and so we have patent filings. And in general, I mean, without getting specific, that they give a general coverage to our overall aggressive strategy. And we will continue to file more patent submissions because developing intelligent systems is just what I do. So, from my background and moving forward, the growth path of the infrastructure and our growth strategy will continue to be very unique in this space, and give both, give us as MindLeap as well as Mydecine a real edge in the market. But I'm sure, we'll figure out what I can tell you about that as the months go on here.
In due time.
Yeah.
Last thing, and I know I said last question before, but I always like to ask this to everyone. How much do you believe this industry can change the world in the healthcare system?
Oh, it could be massive.
Do you think it
Um,
will?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like I said, from a professional point of view, I have this dear hope that it will transform it.
Yeah.
The treatments, first of all, getting people to help is actually the first level of change. Um, and that's actually what's great about MindLeap, is that regardless of whether or not a person goes through a psychedelic treatment and integration for their, to help them along their way, if they get in and use MindLeap, they'll be getting a help already. And
Hmm.
so, and I'll often, when I talk to my team, there's there's this tendency, and especially, and I get this by the investor side and even by your question, to focus on that, and that's an appropriate thing to focus on. But from an inner wellness or a healing journey point of view, just getting people to connect with help is a giant step forward. As I'm sure you know, I mean, if you look at the 12-step arena, it's always about, admitting, the first step is admitting a person that I need help, right? So getting the people in the door just to be using the platform actually helps them along that path. And it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months or 5 years before they finally say, you know what, I've uncovered this pain in my life, this trauma in my childhood. And maybe I've been working, with a specialist, and I've been listening to content, I've been working on stuff, I've been going to meetings, and so on. I've been working on my life, and I uncover stuff, and that some traumas in my past, and then I go through a psychedelic treatment. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's this broad net, if you will, of getting people involved, getting people to connect with help, is how it changes everything.
Well, it's interesting to see, even from an AA 12-step program, does it work in conjunction? Does this replace? Like, it's, given the statistics within that, I don't want to steer anybody in the wrong direction. Works for some, doesn't work for others. But do you see this being a potential benefit for people that struggle with, say, a 12-step program?
For sure. I mean, and there are, I think I see it as an adjunct. I wholeheartedly support, everyone in the 12-step movement, if you will, anyone who's along that path, and that's great. And that I intend for all of those people to be using MindLeap. We have features and content that will be a part of their journey. So we want them all in there. And as far as
that's a big market when you think about it from a global perspective. If memory serves me, I don't know. I think there's 20 or 30 million people that are involved worldwide.
There you go. I think it's probably more than that because at least half of them are completely anonymous, so you wouldn't know if they were in it or not, right?
And who would know better than you in that situation, of course. Listen, I could go on and on here today and pick your brain, but I know you're busy, but I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with us here today. Please keep in touch, and hope we can have you on again soon once we launch the 2.0 version, a little bit more about the app and how it's progressing.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, William.
Good to see you.
You as well. Take care.
Thank you.